Dildo-Riley, thank you for joining us on Freedom Watch. If you want smaller government, you ought to think twice about wanting more military activity. Wars create deficit spending, aided in part by the government printing more money to help pay those huge bills. In fact, the Federal Reserve meeting today announcing it will do even more to try and stimulate the economy. What are they, crazy? Everything they've done so far hasn't worked. Joining me now are two libertarian icons who are no fans of the Fed or of undeclared wars. Congressman Ron Paul from Texas and the chair of the Mises Institute, Lou Rockwell. Gentlemen, thanks for joining us. Congressman Paul, to you, is there a connection between undeclared wars and the Federal Reserve?
Probably, but we don't have proof of this. I think it's the neglect of the Constitution which allows that. I mean, we have a Federal Reserve which is not constitutionally authorized. We go to war and they're not constitutionally authorized. The Fed can literally loan money and grant money to foreign governments and foreign central banks, so we don't know exactly what they're doing. That's why they fought so hard to prevent an audit of the Federal Reserve. But I think our monetary policy and our foreign policy are intertwined. The other thing is even if it's all above board and people vote for war and vote for the spending, and there's not enough money there without pushing up interest rates, the Fed monetizes that debt. So the Fed is there to accommodate the big government conservatives who love war, warmongering, preventive war without declaration, and the people who love domestic welfare spending. Yes, those debts, the deficits are accommodated by the Fed as well. So they are interconnected.
Lou, the Congress did not declare war on Afghanistan. The Congress did not declare war on Iraq. The Congress gave President Bush and his successors open-ended carte blanche to kill anybody they want, war without end. How did this happen?
Well, Judge, we have what in effect is a dictatorship. At least in foreign policy, the president is able to make war on his own. As you say, execute people. He can kill Americans on his own if he thinks they're bad guys. No due process, no judge involved, no jury. And it's absolutely, as Dr. Paul says, connected to the Fed. If there were no Federal Reserve, there could be no American empire. There could not be all these wars, because they don't have to worry about taxing people for them. They just print up the money. So if they did not have the ability to print the money, we wouldn't have wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. We wouldn't be in 170 different countries.
One of the conservative and libertarian criticisms of the Bush administration, Congressman Paul, is that the war was paid for on a credit card. If the war had been paid for on a pay-as-you-go basis, do you think we'd still be there 8, 9 years later?
No, we probably wouldn't even have gone in, but you know, even then it would have been unjustified. But remember, the promise was it would be paid for because we were going to capture that oil, and all the oil revenues would pay for the war, and a lot of people bought into that. So paying for the war, I mean, it's bad enough they don't pay for it, but even if they made the case that they could have gotten enough oil, it's still an evil war because we're doing something we shouldn't be doing, and people are dying, and this is a progressive thing. The war keeps progressing, and now we're going into Pakistan and Yemen and Somalia. We're going back into Somalia. It is such an escalating mess that we have. So even paying for the war makes the war just every bit as evil as it would be if you didn't pay for it.
Lou, is our presence in Afghanistan today sort of an excuse, a pretext, a build-up to go into Afghanistan, to go into Pakistan, or to go into Iran?
Well, we have to look back to the days when President Bush was holding meetings in Houston with the Taliban discussing about a big pipeline through Afghanistan. That still is why the U.S. is in Afghanistan. Control of the oil, control of the minerals, and so it wants control of all the Middle East, all the oil, not only for ourselves, but so we can deny it to countries we want to deny it to. So yes, they want to go into Pakistan, but Pakistan is only the beginning. They'd actually like to take over Saudi Arabia. They'd like to take over Egypt. They really want to run the entire Middle East, these guys in Washington.
Congressman Paul, what would happen if we abolished the Fed tomorrow?
Well, if you did it in one day, it would be a bit chaotic. But if you don't do something, it's going to be very chaotic, too, because you're going to have the destruction of the dollar, and that is very, very dangerous. So even I, who wants to get rid of the Fed as quickly as possible, I would offer a transition where you could just allow competing currencies and sound money to compete with the paper money by repealing the legal tender laws. But no, what I fear is continue to do what we're doing in the chaos that will come when you have a destruction of the dollar.
Congressman Paul, Lou Rockwell, thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Judge.
American lawmakers are handing out another $26 billion of your dollars to the struggling states today, but the states don't get to decide how to spend it. D.C. does. Pennsylvania Governor Ed Rendell is here. How does Washington know better than he does what's good for Pennsylvania? Next.